Welcome back, and this is the great drive through the high plains on Butcher Country heading out to the Howitt Road. It's just got that low-lying scrub and those beautiful plains. And this is one of those must-see destinations for anyone that has never been to the high plains. And just that feeling of being up so high in the mountains and looking down on all the other hills and valleys. And this is one of the places that's covered with snow during winter, and it's also a part of Alpine National Park. For anyone that's travelled a lot around Australia, this is one of the big ticket must-see items just north of Licola. And now, as we're panning up, that is the Wonnangatta Valley, just dropping off the edge here of Mount Howitt and looking out towards Dargo. And here we're coming up to the Tina section of Howitt Road. You turn left here and you'll end up at the Bluff and the back way in around to Mansfield. You turn right and it'll take you down through Licola and back out down through Wellington. And just down here to the left, we're just about to go past the Zika Spur Track, which will take you down to the Wonnangatta Valley and out through to Dargo. A very close call here while not concentrating. This is a great view of the Howitt High Plains, which used to be grazed by the mountain cattlemen. And a bit further down the road, we're going to be at the Howitt Hut, which is a part of the Bryces and Wonnangatta. And here we are at the Howitt Hut. I've just finished up a feed here, so I'm all squared away, and I'll take you for a bit of a look inside the hut and a bit of a look around the back. And you can see the hut from the main Howitt Road. I'd have to say that it's probably one of the more popular huts that would be visited in the high country. And you can see everyone likes to leave their mark as they pass through. This was one of the Bryces huts, who was also involved with Wonnangatta, which is really sort of just down the road. And access was probably more in line between the two with the old original Zika Creek track, which has been closed decades ago. which was a wild and woolly track, which I mentioned before on one of the other previous videos. But it's such a picturesque location, really is. Now, I can remember when there was still cattle out around these areas. It's definitely worth coming up and having a bit of a look. It can be accessed by car most of the year round, except for the seasonal closure. And now heading south towards Licola, just across the top of the high plains. It's a nice little drive, this one. So it dips down and up on just some of the rises. It just really allows you during the drives to check out both sides as it follows the ridge line. And you can look down into the Calidonia Valley and then back over towards Wanangata and Dargo on the other side as you're just cruising down. But it's a pretty well made road. It's for taking cars up here, not just four-wheel drives. It's a little bit rough across this top bit here because it's usually covered in snow, so after the snow melt it's sort of got a little bit rugged. I'm sure there'll be a grader over it sometime during the year, but it does get a lot better once you start dropping off the top here and heading down towards Licola and the Wellington River. It's funny how you get used to all the rattles in the workhorse. Now, while I'm out and about like this, I don't notice a single rattle, of course, but while you're doing the editing, it's just like this, the thing's going to fall apart. And that's simply because I've got so much gear laid out in the car, charging and just being at the ready for what pops up next. And just here, looking out there, that's that cliff section where I was parked on earlier over on Butcher Country in the last video that I was looking off the side. This is looking back at it from Howitt, and you can see right across way out the back there to Mount Skean. But a story of interest while we're cruising down towards Licola, I'm sure a lot of people would have heard already when they're getting their four-wheel drive feeds or whatever, that the Licola stores closed down. Now, this trip here I done just before the end of year holidays, and it must have been, I reckon, probably the 5th of December or something. I was down here, and so it's definitely closed. You see that little rock slide there. That'll be handy finding that coming around the corner on one of those big touring bikes that come flying out here. But yeah, it's definitely closed. They've taken the letterbox away and all that sort of thing since I was there in December. But there's a bit of an uproar saying that the people were kicked out, and I've read a few of the stories from some of the players that have posted on Instagram. Here we are heading on to Caledonia track there. So everyone's up in arms about who's wrong and who's right and all that sort of thing. But the good news is it is going to reopen, because it's definitely an iconic place, Licola, and going to and calling into the shops. I mean, if you own a diesel Land Rover, you probably never bought fuel there, but all the Toyota guys and the Nissan guys, they're regulars buying fuel there. For probably 10 or 15 years I was too, because I was running a V8 supercharged short wheelbase Defender for a lot of time, and yeah, it loves servos. I definitely think I'm going to move those tyre deflators and all that loose change out of that little dash pocket. It's time for a bit of low range, I think. About driving these old TDI automatic Discoveries around is you find yourself getting into situations being in higher range and not in diff lock, because they drive that far before they stop in two-wheel drive. It's quite incredible. And don't just ram your high-low lever in through the gears either. Yeah, so good news on the Licola store reopening. It'll be interesting to see what the new owners do, whether they'll make a huge change or not. But it was interesting to see all the different views from the different sides and all the different posts that were going on that thing. And it turned into like everything else these days on social media. Everything ended up just being the government's fault. I mean, so sick of hearing everything, people, there's no personal responsibility at all whatsoever, I swear. Every time you turn on social media now, it's some government or politician's fault. And, oh, God. So, I don't know whose fault it was, but it's going to be reopened, and that's fantastic. Just mounted up for a bit of a different view here from in front of the driver. I'm not sure what people think. Definitely looks different to me. Try and give you a bit of a driver's perspective. I always try and give the passenger's perspective. There's usually so many things going on. I actually forget to have a chat while I'm driving along there with the camera and the man over there in the passenger's seat. But we'll endeavour to get better at this. Yeah, luckily the sanity's not too bad at this stage, and it still feels a bit unnatural driving along talking to yourself in the car. So I usually forget to do it. Most of the experienced players will be seeing all the steep pinches and jump ups and drop offs and all that sort of thing going on there from behind the steering wheel. funny, I find myself looking at the temperature gauge, and when I'm in the car I never ever usually do. As you can see there, it's hardly even come off the bottom. It's a little bit cool out here today too, but they're incredible, the TDI engines. Even in 50-degree heat, you can be working it up a really big climb, and they'll be lucky to be up to, you know, running temperature, and that's with the thermostat fitted and all. And you know, there's people have problems or have had problems with in the past, but it's usually from bad maintenance, or, you know, running hoses that are about 25 years old, you know, dodgy hose clamps. People, for some reason, they take their factory hose clamps off and they put those dodgy, crappy, super cheap hose clamps on them. And anyway, I won't get involved in that. And did I say super cheap? I mean stupid cheap. I mean, the only thing you need to remember about the TDI is it's been in every frontline fighting vehicle and special forces vehicle for the last 30, 40 years, and it just has an impeccable reliability record. And the only thing that's going to stop you with the TDI is bad maintenance and crap parts. She's dropping away now. Great view out in the valley. You can see the Caledonia track just coming up the other side of that ridge line. A bit hard to see it now. And I've brought a lot of people out and showed them both Butcher Country and Caledonia track. It's just, the two of them are absolutely spectacular, and to have them both side by side, and in particular when you're at going up or down Butcher Country, you've got the McAllister Valley to the left here and the Caledonia Valley to the right. The other thing I should mention about the TDI is I had a full tank when I left Seymour, which is in central Victoria, and all of these videos so far in this trip, I've done all of these tracks and got to this point here, and I've just seen the fuel gauge just before it was at half a tank. But I done the whole trip, went down to Licola, and then I went back up to Silvermine and then Mitchell's, and come out at Jamison and then back across to Seymour, all on one tank of fuel. And what happens in areas like this is it's usually people with inexperience, and when things start to get a little bit steep, they start to nail it, and especially in bigger four-wheel drives, because they start to come to a standstill and they'll start to spin the wheels. Everyone pushes the launch button and tears the track up, and you can see it, in all this stuff, even across on Butcher Country. As soon as it started to be a bit of a steep pinch, it was getting pretty torn to pieces. It's just that these tracks like this is a really good test bed for how good your Ford is, because this really shows how weight is an Achilles heel in a good off-road vehicle. There's a lot of steep spots in all these tracks, and especially this and all other tracks, you know, south around Licola, there's some very steep stuff in around here. And you find this really sorts them out. The problem is particularly when they're a heavy four-wheel drive to start with, and then they just get loaded to the roof with all the accessories, and then most of them are being packed onto the rear of the vehicle, and just makes for an off-road nightmare. Especially because the back of the car gets loaded up, you get no traction off the front wheels when it gets steep, and it's just sketchy as. But it's a common mistake, that's for sure. Facts about all these tracks around the high country and anywhere in Australia when you're in the forest, whether it be the Alpine National Park or somewhere in the Great Dividing Range. Most of these tracks were all put in by an old fella when he was a young fella, driving a Series 1 Land Rover with a bulldozer. And all of these places steep and gnarly and all that sort of stuff, with all of these off-road accessories, lockers and portal axles and all that sort of stuff. This was all driven in stock standard Series 1 Land Rovers. Even more to that, a lot of the really crazy steep tracks, and I was lucky enough when I first got into four-wheel driving, there was still some of them that were still open, and they were just crazy. Like, they wouldn't even put people out there in the dozer to fix them, and the tracks were insane. And a lot of them got closed around the mid-90s. But those tracks there, those just so steep, just blow your mind that someone had driven down there in an unlocked vehicle. But that's the thing, it gets back to what I was just saying before. It's the weight, it's the size and the weight. The reason those Land Rovers can do it is because they were just so light and so agile. Now, I probably should mention too, forestry had some Jeeps as well. Like all this stuff, you know, the internet has changed, or is trying to change history on what was a legend and what was which and what come first. But they were all Land Rovers, you know, that first 10 or 15 years after the Second World War, built with the Snowy and all the hydro dams in Victoria and all over Australia. They were all done by early Land Rovers, long before Toyota was even heard of. And it's just crazy that where they actually used to take the vehicles. You know, a lot of people don't put a lot of thought into how the truck actually got there while they're out there driving. That's how they got there. Well, that's triggering my vertigo. I think I'll get out and walk that. There's just some really great rock shelves and ledges all around this area. It's so rocky, this southern part of the high country, out around Licola and those rock cliff faces right over in Butcher country. That was actually pretty good of Parks to cut that area down. It's a fairway down Caledonia track. Well, not a fairway, but it's probably 5 k's down for Caledonia Creek. Cut it down so you can get a good look out around the ranges. There's a lot of the stuff getting, you know, since I first started coming out here, a lot of the stuff's so overgrown now in those areas that you used to have a really good view off the cliff faces. Tell you a funny story. I was pulled up for a bit of lunch at the Howitt Hut there. I just finished my meal. I was enjoying a Kransky in a roll with barbecue sauce, and you know you shouldn't be doing it, but I'm out here, so I just do it. And I had a nice ice cooled can of Coke, off the Coke, don't go near it. Really enjoy it every now and then, and while you're out here, why not? And I was just about to enjoy it, and the car come down the road, and that was the end of that. Anyway, that's alright. So I'm having my can of Coke as the two fellas pull up in a Ranger. Let's shout out and say g'day. Anyway, they do a bit of a tour of the hut. I can hear one of the guys telling the guy with the Ranger how it all used to be here years ago and all that sort of thing. I'm just listening. Enjoying the can of Coke. And he wanders over and he goes, done a bit of work on that old boss. Yeah. He goes, I used to have one of those. He goes, it only cost me a house. I said, what do you mean? And you just know I'd been ambushed by Toyota. Anyway, I said, what do you mean? He goes, oh, just the money I spent on it. You know, I always work on it. Whoa, take it easy there. It cost me a fortune. And I said, mate, I think you might have been getting taken. And I said, because this Discovery here, it's got 600,000 k's on it, and I don't spend a cent on it. I said, they've got to be one of the most reliable vehicles of all time. Because at this stage, I already knew it was a Toyota, because he had ambushed me. So I thought I'll fire a salvo back. And I go, mate, this is more reliable. I'll put this up against any Toyota. This is more reliable than any Toyota. Well, it was shots fired. And everybody knows, now people go on about the tooth for the hole in it being sensitive, but nothing is more sensitive than a Toyota owner under attack. And he just went on and on and on and on. And I thought, I'll fire a few back, and I won't go into full detail there. Well, he rolled out the old Land Rovers and broken axles. Now, I haven't heard that for about 10 or 15 years. It's been a long time since I heard that one. He's an older fella, so he's probably been wheeling that out for most of his life. And I said, mate, but that's not true. I said, that might have been how it was back in the day. I said, but every time you tune into the internet, the first thing you see is a Toyota 100 series or an 80 series with a broken CV or a broken axle. I said, the most broken axles of any vehicle on the internet is the Toyota Land Cruiser. You can look at four-wheel drive 24/7 and all the other YouTubers. The great thing about YouTube is, since they're being all on YouTube, we can see just exactly how reliable Toyotas are when you start working them like you did the old Land Rovers. And they don't like it. And when they get long in the tooth, they break, and they break lots. Just, that's the original up track there, before they put the switchbacks out. Anyway, he's a little bit wound up at the end. I didn't go overboard, I was taking it easy on him, even though he'd ambushed me like they usually do. But I did have a laugh as they drove off, because he's out here with his old mate and his mate's Ranger. So the old Land Cruiser must be parked up at home. He said he had a 100 series, and I said to him about how weak the front axles are in 100 series. They're just notorious, because the guy at Birdsville Survey told me personally 20 years ago he keeps a couple in stock because the old 100s don't get more than 2 tunes past Big Red and then bent the axle housing in the front and chew out the diff. Anyway, I told him that one, and that fired him up again a bit. But I did have a laugh, and I felt sorry for him. His mate was a bit sheepish walking around his Ranger while the salvos were going on, and he had a bit of a smile on his face. But I feel sorry for his mate in the Ranger now, because he's going to hear about that bastard in that Land Rover all afternoon. I don't know what it is, and we've all experienced it. It's just something about, and it's not all Toyota owners, this is the thing, it's not all, but it just seems to be that the sheep love Toyotas too. And man, they just love to start something and pick shit on your Land Rovers. And you know, I've been listening to it for probably over 3 decades. So I'm well and truly used to it. I get a bit of enjoyment out of firing salvos back now and winding them up. But I look at it like this. It's just like, it's old-fashioned psychology. If you really think you've got a vehicle that's so much better than that bloke in his old Land Rover, then you'll just quietly smile to yourself and won't say a word. But if you're an insecure person and you feel like you've been done, you'll try and wind up everybody. You'll always be telling everybody how good your car is, because you're not quite sure of it yourself. The sad part is that you meet lots of really nice Toyota owners, and I've met a heap of them over the years. But just unfortunately, the sheep love them too. Going on now. We got one going down there. And one going down there. Does that one come back on it? I'll go to my own one. Yeah, the switchbacks were never in this. This is all, well, in the last 20 years or something. That was a really steep climb out of Caledonia. Yeah, that arsehole in that Land Rover. Land Cruisers don't break down. That's it for another instalment in the High Plains trip. We're just about down to the Caledonia River, and in the next video we're going to head right through all the river crossings and then up to Dingo Hill.